Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know what? We're going to go against the public. We're going to fade the public here. Right now, if you go to your friendly neighborhood casino, you're going to see a heavyweight fight featuring unbeaten Dominic Breazeale. He's 16-0 with 14 knockouts, and he's favored over a 43-year-old hardcore Amir Mansour. Mansour is the underdog in the fight. Right now, I believe you're getting something like a plus 130 on Mansour. I like Mansour in this one. This fight's happening at Staples in Los Angeles. I'm sure we're all looking for the next great heavyweight. I'm just here to tell you, though, that Mansour is one of those ghosts that haunt the heavyweight division. Let's talk about it. First, let's talk about the unbeaten favorite, Dominic Breazeale. Let me also say, too, if you're a distance bettor, I personally don't see this fight going the distance. I actually feel that somebody in this fight's going to get stopped, and I say that knowing that Mansour has gone the distance in 3 of his last 4 fights. So to sum up my views, I think Mansour is a live dog. I also think another way to play this is that it doesn't go the distance. Since Mansour is the underdog and you're getting better than even money. Part of your betting portfolio, in my opinion, should be to just take Mansour straight up. Although I'll be surprised if this fight goes the distance. Let's talk about it. And, of course, if you bet distance, then if either guy gets the KO, you win the bet. Let's talk about it. Dominic Breazeale. Tall guy, very tall guy. Let me say this, though. He's different than the guy who beat Mansour, Steve Cunningham. Cunningham can fight on his back foot. Breazeale is different than the guy who just got a draw with Amir Mansour. Gerald Washington is underrated and can fight on his back foot. Picks his spots. These are guys who are looking to counter you. They're looking for openings. They're reactive. Breazeale is proactive. He's more of a lead puncher, not a counter puncher. That makes all the difference in the world when you're dealing with a guy who has one of the best punches in the entire sport. Let me be clear. What I'm saying here in this video is that 43-year-old Amir Mansour, who's a southpaw, throws a right hand. It's not the hand he has cocked. It's the one up front. He throws a right hand that is among the best punches in boxing. And he is older than Vladimir Klitschko. Now, Breazeale, 14 KOs in 16 fights. How could he not be the puncher in the fight? And I'm just telling you, it's because he's fighting Amir Mansour. Breazeale, to me, is made to order. Now, you need to filter my comments here against the fact that I'm actually talking about the underdog. The favorite is made to order for the underdog because Mansour is excellent to the body. Mansour can fight low. The tall guy is front foot heavy. The tall guy is a lead. He's going to be coming in. He's going to be throwing punches because he's a knockout puncher himself. He's going to be throwing hard punches, using all of his leverage in throwing the punch, leaving himself open for counters. Let me point out too, Breazeale is not defensively blessed, right? In fact, Mansour, who isn't a defensive genius himself, in my opinion, is the better defensive fighter, right? So what you're going to have is a situation where Mansour is going to think it's Christmas, in my opinion. Because rather than dealing with an elusive Steve Cunningham, right, that jab's hitting you in the face, he's light on his feet, he's moving around, you come forward, he goes backward, you're still getting hit with shots, right? He's hard to find, he's hard to hit. Rather than deal with that, Mansour, who wants to fight in a phone booth, is going to have a big guy who's going to try to meet him in the phone booth. Right? Let me say this too. Breazeale, not a lot of lateral movement. This is the guy who has the height, has the reach, and gives them away. Right? Let's talk about Mansour. Let me say this. He's a southpaw. He can fight low. Now, I know the boxing cognoscenti always compares him to Mike Tyson. He's not Mike Tyson. Right? Understand that Mike Tyson was half, in fact, less than half the age of Amir Mansour. Right? Understand, Tyson ruled the roost when he was in his early 20s. By the time Tyson's 30, an argument can be made he's a shell of himself. Right? When Tyson was younger, he had lightning-quick reflexes. Don't look at the punching power, which was prodigious, right? Which was Amir Mansour level, right? Tyson had phenomenal punching power. But Tyson also had phenomenal quickness, right? He could just make a move and be inside on you. He was cat quick. Now, Mansour has the punch. He doesn't have the cat quickness or the cat quick coordination. Right? Tyson could see an opening and the punch would land. Tyson was so fast, guys started hugging Tyson. Bone Crusher Smith, right? Hugging Tyson. Amir Mansour doesn't have that level of quickness. You don't have to hug him for fear that he's just going to jump on you and finish you. Right? With Mansour, you could actually move away from him. Steve Cunningham gets drilled. By the way, that fight is a must-see. Cunningham gets drilled and dropped twice in the 5th round. Right? Cunningham is barely conscious, starting the 6th round. He was able to move away from Mansour. Right? With Mike Tyson, you didn't really have that choice. Right? Once Larry Holmes gets hit by Mike Tyson, folks, it's over. Right? Larry wasn't going to be able to avoid Mike Tyson. Right? Just wasn't able to do it. That's why guys held Tyson. Now, Amir Mansour against a guy with lateral movement, right, who could stick a jab and move away, would have problems. But he's not fighting that opponent. He's fighting a guy who actually thinks he can play chess with Mansour. Right? So Mansour, I'm telling you the way height works, is when there's a height gap, sometimes it favors the shorter fighter. Right? Here you have Mansour, who is a devastating body puncher, who's going to be able to bend at the waist and hide his body, who's going to force Breazeale to look for him. Right? And Breazeale's high volume. So Mansour's even going to have the opportunity to time his punch. Both of these guys fought Fred Cassie. Right? The Breazeale-Cassie match is controversial. That's a close match. Cassie is landing counter after counter. Right? Cassie even looks faster than Breazeale, who isn't a great athlete. What do I mean by great athlete? He doesn't look to have light quick reflexes, right? He's not lightning fast. The hand speed isn't really there, right? He's more of a hard worker than a guy who's just blessed, right? In fact, I believe Mansour, the puncher, has the underdog, has the hand speed advantage in this fight. So one of two things is going to happen, because understand boxing, right? Guys grow old in one fight. You watch a guy, you say, oh, he's in great shape. Oh, he's aged well. He's preserved himself. Then, of course, you see him when the calendar catches up with him in the next fight, and suddenly the guy looks like a, Social Security recipient, right? The match looks like elder abuse. So one of two things is going to happen. Either Breazeale is going to come in with youth, height, right? Unbeaten record. He's the favorite. He's going to enter the ring and he's going to try to overwhelm Mansour with volume and, a lot of attitude. Now, either Mansour is going to wilt, right? Or Breazeale gets knocked the hell out, right? Because I'm telling you, you come in with an attitude, you're throwing a lot of punches. A crafty veteran with this level of punching power is just going to wait for you to throw one punch, be unable to defend yourself, then he's going to close the show, right? Breazeale could get knocked out early, or we get the situation in the Washington fight where Mansour survives the storm early. Then he's the one chopping down the tree later in the fight, right? Washington starts getting walked down in that fight. Now keep in mind, Washington far more elusive than Breazeale, who's going to try to trade with Mansour, right? So, to sum up, I think the casinos have this one wrong. I think Mansour is that rare fighter who, if he lands, can knock anyone out. Let me say this, in terms of punching power, and I'm serious, and I know the public disagrees with me, right? But, two of the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division, and I'll give Vladimir Klitschko credit for his punching power, right? But other than Vladimir Klitschko, two of the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division are David Haye, who hits hard with both hands, right? Don't sleep on Haye. Don't think the friendly persona means he's friendly in the ring. No. Far from it. And Amir Mansour, right? Understand that as good as Deontay Wilder's right hand is, and that also is one of the best punches in boxing, right? Just understand that Amir Mansour is one of the few people who get the same kind of results off his right hand. Now just think about how Deontay Wilder would be more dangerous if that right hand was his lead. That's the situation with Mansour. Let me also point out that it's true, Wilder has a left hook. I'm telling you that Mansour's left hand, right, his left is better than Wilder's left, right? So if you're looking for heavyweight punching power, right, all I ask you is to not judge the guy's appearance, right? Because Mansour's the shorter fighter. He looks a little thin. He, how do you put it? He looks like a pleasant guy. Just understand, this pleasant-looking 43-year-old packs one of the biggest punches, has one of the biggest bites in the heavyweight division. I've heard about Charles Martin's power, I just haven't seen it. Right? Certainly I didn't see it in this Tsar Glasgow fight. But I can tell you the guy who really reminds me of Mansour's type power, because it's sudden. Right? Not a lot of a wind-up. It's sudden. is David Haye, right? Where, an opponent is standing up. Look at the Fred Cassie Mansour finish here online. I'm just telling you that Cassie gets hit so hard, and I'm not kidding here. You can tell the announcers were wondering whether he was still alive, right? So a lot of people, obviously the odds makers on this fight, are looking at Mansour's age, 43. And they're saying, look, this guy should be the underdog. Just understand that Mansour spent time in prison, right? He's a young 43, folks. He didn't fight a lot for several years, right? Also understand he's 43 in the right division, right? 43 at lightweight, that's perilous. Too much action, too much youth. 43 at heavyweight, just understand, right? Vladimir Klitschko's what, 39, 40 years old? Wasn't Vitaly Klitschko the champion in his 40s? Right? The heavyweight division has a different calendar. So you have a well-preserved 43-year-old with a huge punch. Also understand power is the last to go. So I think this is the perfect setup. A well-publicized young lion, Dominic Breazeale, who's overrated and unbeaten, right? And he's fighting an older guy, right? A craftsman with a big punch who has waited for this opportunity, right? I'm just telling you. Mansour fought Steve Cunningham. I want you to look at the 10th round. It's here on YouTube. Folks, I don't think Mansour could see in that 10th round, right? Joe Frazier mindset, right? Must be a Philadelphia thing. Guy's in the ring. The guy is practically blind. Think about it. Blind against a quick-handed Steve Cunningham, right? Let's just say Mansour is in there and he has his moments. The knockdown is, really an off-balance type thing. Don't get me wrong. Cunningham hit some square. Cunningham earned it. But let's just say when you see the knockdown, Mansour gets hit, he's off balance, then his glove touches the canvas. Hardly a guy getting blown off his feet, right? That's a fight where Mansour got the 2 earlier knockdowns, right? Now I see a guy like that show that level of commitment to the trade, that level of heart, against a guy who I personally consider to be better than Dominic Breazeale, right? And that's Steve USS Cunningham, right? I see Mansour showing that level of courage. And I just have to say to myself, wow, who's the genius who decided to make him the underdog in this fight? So, I like Mansour over Breazeale. That's one way to play it. If you're a little bit nervous about betting on a 43-year-old, and I understand it, I think one of these guys is going to get stopped. Now, just understand, these are very high-risk plays because Mansour's the underdog, and neither guy has been stopped in their career. But I'm going to boldly go where the tape tells me to go, right? Just knowing Mansour's punching power, I can tell you that Dominic Breazeale has never been hit like he's going to get hit in this fight. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. By the way, on the Danny Garcia-Guerrero fight, I have a video up. I think Garcia wins that one. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.